So today we're going to be looking at Galatians chapter 2 verses 11 through 14, and the context is that Peter is starting to back off from being in fellowship with Gentile Christians. At first, he was very open and warm and welcoming to Gentile Christians, but he's getting some pressure from Jerusalem to back off, to stop being so chummy with the Gentiles. Why is that? Well, it's because Jerusalem was a powder keg at the time. There were a lot of forces from within and from without that were threatening Jewish identity. And so the church in Jerusalem, they get rumors that their leader, Peter, is getting too close to Gentiles, that he's being too chummy with them, that he's spending too much time with these Gentiles. And so James, who's sort of holding down the leadership post in Jerusalem, is under a lot of fire. He's under a magnifying glass, he and his community, because a lot of other Jews are looking at them and thinking, are you a threat to Jewish identity? Are you holding, true to our heritage? And so James basically puts pressure on Peter to back off in his relationship to the Gentile Christians. And Paul criticizes Peter and says, Peter, you've been acting like a Gentile. Now you're backing off. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, he doesn't mean that Peter is eating pork chops or anything like that. He just means that Peter isn't being as distant in his relationships to Gentiles as ultra-Orthodox Jews usually are. And instead, he's spending time with them. And so Paul says that by reversing his behavior, he's actually being hypocritical. So what is Paul's point? Well, Peter, like Paul, knew that Jesus had changed everything. Peter also knew that being faithful to Jesus did not mean turning your back on your Jewish heritage, but it did mean making a place for Gentiles to come and to be a part of this fellowship and this covenant family. And at first, Peter's actions signify that he believes that and that he agrees with that. He is opening his heart and his arms and his table to Gentiles. But now he's backing off from that. And Paul accuses Peter of play acting, which is the word for hypocrite. Hypocrite means to play the actor. And what Paul is saying is that you're playing the part of a Jew who doesn't want to be around Gentiles, who doesn't have a place for Gentiles in the covenant family, when you know that Jesus has made a place for them. You're giving into pressure from the ultra-nationalists back at home. And so Paul is calling Peter on the carpet. Here is my translation of Galatians 2, 11 through 14. When Peter arrived at Antioch, I told him that I was against the way he was acting. I told him that he was in the wrong. He used to welcome Gentiles at his table with open arms. All of this changed when representatives from Jerusalem came to see him. When they got there, Peter started treating Gentile believers differently. He became cool in his affections and standoffish. He kept them at arm's length, acting as if he were too good for their company. He did all of this because he was afraid of making a bad impression on those sent by James. Peter did not want to offend the good people back at home. Peter's actions were disingenuous. Still, the rest of the Jewish believers began following suit. Even Barnabas began acting differently. So I confronted Peter publicly. I said, Peter, you're Jewish, yet you've been acting like a Gentile. Now you're pretending to be ultra-Orthodox. Worse, you want Gentiles to act like they're ultra-Orthodox Jews. The point is that through Jesus, God had made a place for the Gentile believers to come and stand as equals beside Israel, worshiping and serving the God of Israel. And yet they didn't have to become Jewish in order to do that. They were able to remain faithful to their cultural identity while allowing their Jewish brothers and sisters to do the same.